Welcome everybody to the Channeling Erik panel. This is the first of hopefully many discussions that we're going to have that have to do with science, spirituality, and everything in between. And we have a lot of wonderful guests, and there will be some new guests every time, but the regulars are as follows. We have me, your host, mommy of Erik Medhus, the spirit guide and rascal on the other side of the veil. We have our wonderful medium, spiritual arts teacher, etc., Veronica Drake. Hi, Veronica.
Hi, hi, hi.
And we have Tracy and Cara, the Soul Happy Technique girls, both psychotherapists and both very knowledgeable about the neuropsychology behind the spiritual and beyond. So would each of you guys like to tell a little bit about what you bring to the table? And then we will unveil our topic of the day.
So I'll bring everybody to the table spiritually that needs to come over. How was that for simple?
That sounds awesome. And Erik will help drag them kicking and screaming to the table.
Tracy, what do you got?
So we're going to bring, I'm going to help bring just some of the psychology behind human behavior with whatever topic we're talking about. And I'm hoping to hear, from the spirits beyond the real deal behind, if even where we're going with psychology is even correct.
Good idea. And what about you, Cara?
Same as Tracy. We bring the psychotherapeutic realm into this conversation and in hopes that we can impart some knowledge and clarity and things like that.
Wait. I thought you were going to bring the brownies.
The
refreshments. What? No.
We should have
I got coffee.
I got iced tea.
I got water.
Just plain water.
Anybody got wine?
Yeah.
It's too early here on the East Coast.
Yeah.
It
okay.
is.
So today's topic, drum roll please, is suicide and mental illness. I think this is very appropriate considering that mental illness plagued Erik and many people on the blog and all over the world. And there's been such a huge increase in the number of suicides. I think it's like 25% in what? Cara, Tracy, do you know? Like in the last year or 5 years? But it's been
I don't know statistics, but I can tell you I just met with a group of counselors recently who let me know that they are seeing unprecedented amounts of suicides.
Yeah.
Parents coming forth and needing counseling and just had no idea that this many people were out there. It's unprecedented in their careers.
Yeah.
So I know there's an increase in as far as statistics. I wouldn't be able to speak to that, but
okay.
I know that it's very, very prevalent right now.
And of course, I forgot to introduce my boy, Erik. Hi, Erik. I love you.
Hi, Mom. I love you too. He says, hi, ladies.
Hi, Erik.
Hello, Erik.
He's probably going to flirt.
He's going like this with his tie. He's got a skinny little tie on that he's shaking up like this, but he has sneakers on his feet. So
okay.
He dressed up for us.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome. He is flirting. All right. So today, with the help of Erik, we're going to bring in a couple of people. One is somebody who committed suicide themselves, Robin Williams, and the other, an expert in all things psychiatric, Sigmund Freud, Dr. Sigmund Freud. So Erik, could you go get those two for us?
So he says that Robin Williams is here, and Robin Williams, I can attest to this, is a massive ball of energy in the room. I mean,
bet.
Not like he was like on Earth, but his soul is filling, like I have chill bumps and I feel like I need to go like this because there's not enough room. Freud is kind of off in the back. He's kind of hanging out a little bit. So that kind of indicates we're going to start with Robin Williams.
Okay. All right. Now, well, anybody can jump in and answer any questions. I do have questions from blog members that we'll tackle perhaps later on. But, the first question I want to ask any of you guys is, why this increase in suicide? What is going on in the world? Erik, Dr. Freud, Robin?
So actually, Freud's going to step forward with this one. And he's telling me that there is a major disconnect, a major shift away from what it was that settled people down and the normalcy of life. He's saying that people no longer know where to turn, and he's using air quotes for normal. And so what people would see as solutions to this disconnect, they no longer know how to get to those solutions. And so they see one big ominous solution, and that is suicide. He's saying it's not necessarily a mental health thing. It's more of a societal anxiety, stress, have to, should thing. And I want to clarify, this is me clarifying. When I hear these energies talk to me, they talk very practical, very simple. You're not going to hear me spew out technical terms. So if anybody's thinking I'm going to work like that, I just don't. It's very simple.
Yeah.
And so that's why Freud, now normally I would think Freud would sit down and have a much more sophisticated conversation, but I ain't that host.
No, we want him to dumb it down for us anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So he's talking about the disconnect, and he's talking about everything going to the extreme. And how everything seems magnified in the world that we live in. Have to have more, have to have better. He said it's a combination of societal expectations, familial roles and expectations, and lastly, you throw in a belief system, he says. And then, of course, there's the chemistry of it all.
Yeah, the biochemistry?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
And of course, I think there's a lot more anger in the world, and there's a lot more, or maybe there is, a lot more fuck you types of suicide.
Well, yes. And he's saying that people see that as a quick solution. And actually, Robin Williams and Erik are very quick to jump in here and say that it is not the solution. It is not something that if you're feeling you're there, you want to go deeper into what the feeling really is, because the feeling, and Robin Williams is standing forward with this, the feeling never really is, I'm going to kill myself. I want to kill myself. I want to kill myself. The feeling is, how do I stop hurting?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How do I take away the hurt? Yeah. So understanding what the hurt is, but also there's a stigma with this that Robin Williams is also speaking, telling me that a lot of people don't want to mention this because for fear that they will become labeled and they will be looked at differently. So again, there's a societal thing at work on that end of it.
They don't want to mention what? Their suicidal ideation?
Yeah, or even that they feel depressed.
Yeah. Because all of a sudden you're considered flawed or vulnerable, and God forbid that you should be vulnerable with your feelings. And Erik teaches us that being vulnerable with your feelings and reaching out with your heart is actually, a very courageous thing.
Or Robin Williams is even saying in the industry that he was in, he was so magnified, his life was so magnified that early on it was because this is lifelong for him, he says. Early on, you don't let anybody know because it's a career ruiner.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, Erik, aren't there some new souls coming in that are more fragile? I don't know, less grounded? I mean, is there something behind this new population of souls coming in?
Well, he wants to clarify that there are new souls coming in, as in young souls, immature souls that really don't have an understanding of how to deal with the ever-evolving, ever-changing lifestyle that we live in. So yes, you're right with that. But a soul that comes in and can't handle life That's always been, and that's sometimes contractual, he says.
Well, why don't they just get put in a walk-in? Why do they have to kill themselves? And it's like an atom bomb. It was like an atom bomb going off in our family. Everybody changed. It was just, there was so much turmoil and so much despair and so much pain. Why not just say, hey, man, I'm done. Come on, take my place, understudy. Why?
That's actually not a very common thing, he says, to have a walk-in come in. There has to be extraordinary circumstances, but he doesn't want to digress from this because he said, while it was like your family blew up, and he totally gets that, and, you know, I'm sorry to the high heavens, he says, but the reality is his taking his own life has changed the path of all of your lives. And Elisa, he's saying, Mom, you more than anyone should know.
Yeah.
And so he's saying, had I not taken my life, none of this, we wouldn't be sitting here with these two women, you know, with Veronica, with you, with the mediums doing this, he said. And my life was not for nothing. It was to teach.
Okay. Well, it was kind of part of a spiritual contract. But Robin, was your suicide part of a spiritual contract? And any of you, how common is it for it to be a spiritual contract?
Ladies, do you want to answer this, or you want Robin to jump in first? Whatever.
Robin could, I think.
Okay. So Robin is saying, I can only speak for myself, and myself signed up to enter a certain way and to exit a certain way. And the exit was to be tragic. So in other words, when I wrote my contract, I knew that I would come into an affluent way of life where I had everything, supposedly, that you could want. And I also knew coming in that I would leave in a way that would impact millions of people and also leave a hole and a question mark in a lot of people's minds. But it wasn't contracted that I would exit the way that I did via taking my life. It wasn't necessarily written that way. I chose it as a human using my free will.
Why? What was the last straw? I mean, what was the trigger? Why did you kill yourself?
So one of the images he's showing me is like he has a vice on his head. It's like he felt like there was a vice on his head. It just kept pushing and pushing and pushing, he says. Everything got harder and harder in my head, and it just wouldn't let up. He said, think about having a migraine for months and months, and that pressure. He said it was a literal physical heaviness in my head, and I couldn't stop it.
Freud, what do you think that was about? Or Erik, or ladies, Tracy and Cara, what do you think was behind that? Tension headaches? I don't know.
Well, I think he's saying pressure and almost like more symbolically, right? As opposed to a true headache. I mean, I know one of the things that, you know, that I've observed through all the years in my practice is that if you think about like what is like a common denominator with people who feel suicidal. I mean, other than the obvious that people are depressed, but, you know, not everybody who's depressed feels suicidal.
No other solution, feeling like there's no other way out?
Well, you know, kind of one of my observations is this is a real natural human condition that we all experience just on very, very different levels, is that how you feel on the inside. So how you, like, kind of like what your own truth is. If you kind of really get to know who you are, what your purpose is, what your truth is, and if that truth gets to be lived out in your life, then if you're aligned with it, you're in pretty good shape. But if you're not, it can cause, in fact, the word we use in our field is cognitive dissonance. And the greater the dissonance between what you're living, what you're living and how you feel inside. I mean, like, for instance, I really don't know anything about Kate Spade and her suicide, but just to use my theory here, she built a company around a brand that was very cheerful, right? Bright colors,
yeah,
that were whimsical and playful. And even the little bit I knew about her public persona, she had a very sunny disposition, which matched her brand. So if she did start feeling depressed, imagine the pressure, even more so for public figures, like Kate Spade, Williams, Anthony Bourdain. Imagine if she's got this brand based on cheerfulness and she's feeling dark. There's her cognitive dissonance probably got greater and greater and greater. And it might have contributed. Like I said, I don't really know much about it, but I wonder if Robin Williams, the pressure he's talking about is that, here's this comedian, this brilliant comedian who really made us laugh in like the guffaw, and as he was getting darker inside with his depression, I wonder if his own cognitive dissonance is that what he's supposed to show the world, make people, to crack people up. And I wonder, Robin, what you would say to that. Is there like this thing I found that the people who are living their most authentic life, their inside kind of matches what they're living, seem to be the happiest people and the people who are struggling the least.
Well, Robin,
he's saying that never really happened for me. Early on in his life, in his career, he said he self-medicated. He's saying that he did anything he could to get away from this vice type feeling. And he is reiterating it's not a literal pressure of sorts. He just wanted to give an analogy of a constant pressure on him in life. And he's saying, he's showing me like this, he's doing the spiral. The bigger he got, the more he got into the drugs to keep up the largeness of who he was, the largeness of his personality, and the more he swirled and swirled. And he's saying, interestingly enough, choice of words, I circled the drain many times, he said.
What do you mean by that?
What he's saying is, till we all go down the drain and everything is gone, he kind of circled the drain, flirted on the edge of life many, many, many times. He said the secret side of him was the true side of him, he says. And the true side of him, Tracy, he's speaking to your point about living authentically when there's an alignment. He said there just never was an alignment, but I would soothe it. I would soothe the disconnect with stuff. I would soothe it with my family, my children. I would soothe it with alcohol and drugs. I would soothe it by going for the next big deal and negotiating. He's saying I got a hard on by negotiating the big deals. So it was momentarily that he would take his mind off the unhappiness. This is from what I'm understanding, this plagued him his entire life.
Cara, what do you tell your patients that, or the families of patients that are suicidal? How do you approach that?
It's a tough one. We, as therapists, we're not given, I think, a complete tool chest when we get out there and practice. There are these things that, if you have a client that indicates any kind of signs of wanting to end their life or harm another, then we have this duty to report, and then we have these lines of rules that we have to follow regarding that. So it's a very structured, very clinical thing as a therapist to approach this concept of suicide.
Erik says red tape bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've gone to courses. I've actually spent weekends studying this whole. There's people out there who study they have a term for it. I believe it's called suicidology or.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, I've actually gone to weekends and studied this stuff. And
oh, that's a cheerful little vacation.
Yeah, you know, as therapists, that was early on in my career when I was really gung ho.
Yeah.
More so than now. But you know, that those. I remember in the end, the big takeaway from the experts in suicide claim that if an individual really, truly wants to commit suicide, they will.
Oh, yeah.
And there is no therapist, there is no parent, there is no one who's going to make that difference in their life.
God knows I tried with Erik.
No,
so
I mean,
much.
Elisa, hopefully you get that.
And therapists too.
And Robin interjects, and he said, I wasn't somebody that walked around talking about it, because people who mean business with it don't walk around and talk about it. Typically, it's kept under wraps.
Yeah.
The people who talk about it are really looking for that help. It's still a cry for help.
Yeah.
Whereas, they're still looking for the help, and they're hopeful. They actually have a little bit of hopefulness to it.
Yeah.
Or they wouldn't talk about it. I mean, at least did Erik talk? He didn't.
No. But his therapist gave him her cell phone number, and if you ever think about it, and of course, you know, people who really want to kill themselves, they're not going to, hey, so and so, yeah, you know, they're not going to do that. They're just not going to reach out for help. Freud, do you want to add anything to this?
He's just confirming that the more silent, the more deadly. And he's
silent and deadly. Oh gosh. Okay. Erik, don't make a joke about this. Okay. I can see a joke on the horizon.
You're going to get emails. He's advocating for us to tighten up our professional counseling standards so that we can understand what silent looks like.
And what does it look like, Dr. Freud?
Because he's saying if somebody goes to counseling, and he's saying that there will be people that will go to counseling with the idea and the intention that they're going to kill themselves. They'll sit every week in the therapist's office or every month, but they won't ever talk about it. And so the therapist, he's actually saying therapy in this time, in this century, and at this date, therapy is broken.
Yeah, wow.
There is something broken, and I have chills. The hair on my arm is standing up. Therapy is broken, he said. Back in the day, back in the beginning of understanding what the brain was and all of that, therapy evolved, but it hasn't evolved fast enough to catch up with the decaying, declining society.
Oh.
And therapy, girls, he's telling me to turn this over to the psychotherapist, let them talk to this decaying and this therapy that's not serving us. Do you know what he's talking about?
Well, Freud is preaching to the choir. I mean, I have chills just hearing what he says, because he is the father of psychology. He started it. He put some structure and a career and a focus to being able to study human behavior in the mind. And, you know, there wasn't a whole lot known back then. And then fast forward, I mean, you know, I've been in the field since the 80s. And I started out in traditional psychotherapy, talk therapy. Well, so what I'm so excited about, and I'd be curious what he thinks about this, it kind of eroded. I don't know why. I don't know if it's human ego, illusions. I don't know what it was that interfered, but it became kind of like the therapist is going to kind of tell you what to do. And you're going to probably become pretty dependent on them because you're going to them for advice. And that was never the intention, is that we kind of give advice. Really, the other thing, I'm so curious as to what Freud thinks about So I think that was part of the decline. There's a real limitation in traditional talk therapy. There's a real barrier to success, and success was very subjective. And so Cara and I are like-minded souls who just knew there had to be a better way. We just knew it in our guts. And the more we started looking into things, we were shocked at the more recent breakthroughs in neuroscience and in the brain, in brain science and the mind. And we actually believe that all these years, us therapists have been dealing with the wrong part of the mind. We've been dealing with the conscious mind. We now, Cara and I, are focused on the subconscious mind, and we are on a mission to change the psychotherapy.
And to speak to Freud, Freud was the one who termed, the term subconscious mind. So it's almost like it's going full circle, except that we now look at that terminology a little differently.
Well, Cara, talk about your soul happy technique, and let's see what Freud has to say about it.
Well, okay, so we now, what you didn't know back then, Freud, was that that brainwave states are actually measurable, and we have devices. Of course, he knows all this. I'm acting like, I got to catch him up to date.
He knows it now.
He doesn't. He knows much more than we do. But we now understand that when we lower brainwave states, we can access this term that you coined as the subconscious. And in the subconscious mind, we've learned that we can program and turns out deprogram certain things, and that these states of mind allow for concentration and focus and the things that we all have access to. We just didn't know it, because we're in this field of psychology and psychotherapy have been, to Tracy's point, focused on what is termed the conscious mind. That is the part of us that we're more analytical, and we're more, on the surface,
and manipulative and deceitful. You don't want to tell your therapist everything.
He's saying that essentially there are two people inside of us.
Yeah.
And so we are the conscious person and we are the unconscious person, is what he's saying. And what he would like to see therapy do is exactly what they're saying. Focus on the unconscious part of us. However, he would like to see some education around the unconscious part. Nobody talks about that, he said. And it's really, we've gotten to a place in our society, he's saying, where people want it quick. They want it fast. He said it's almost appalling the way he looks, or the way things look, even when it comes to our mental and physical health. It's not like we can drive through and get a hamburger and get a mental tune-up. He said it takes work, it takes conscious effort, but he's really wanting us to address the two people, and he's calling them two people inside of us. So does that mean anything, girls? Like, how would you interpret that for what he's saying?
Well, so he was the one who really felt like the unconscious ran the show. Cara, how do you describe his iceberg visual?
Well, I think this is the, a very well-known analogy that he gives for the subconscious and the conscious mind, or it's also the other terminology for this is unconscious. Tracy and I use the word, and we've learned that a lot of this terminology is all semantics, because when you talk about the unconscious mind, Tracy and I have been reminded, well, you mentioned unconscious, that reminds you of when you are going through surgery and you have anesthesia. So we just strayed away from that, but other therapists use different terminology for it.
We use subconscious.
We use subconscious, but a lot of different people use different terminology for it. But anyway, so the subconscious mind, if you can picture a large iceberg, And the top of the iceberg, when you see, let's a picture of it, it's this very small part. That is what Freud said was the conscious mind. But underneath the iceberg, it's massive, and it shows this visual of this massive iceberg underneath the ice. And it's just huge. That's the subconscious mind.
Well, is there ever a goal for a person to make the gap between their subconscious and conscious mind close, like they're the same as their conscious and subconscious minds are the same, or?
Well, like anything else, it's practice and meditation. Buzzword that is used so much out there, and but understanding that the more you practice going into these lower frequencies, the better you become at it, and the more you access. People like Veronica probably access it very easily. She can probably access that, but the rest of us, we need a lot of practice.
But also, I like his point. He's being very specific that it's two people inside of you. The conscious person, the conscious part of you is the person who is really just, kind of intellectualizing things and analyzing things, and is the person who's out there. The subconscious person, or what he calls the unconscious person, is really the main person, and is really the person running the show.
Is it the higher self?
Well, it's the part of us that is programmed from all of our experiences accumulated through an entire lifetime. Well, I'd be curious if he agrees. He's really the expert now, but the way I see it, and then I would love his feedback. Cara and I see it as, all those, in talk therapy, everybody looks at their past memories. We look at our childhood, we look at our upbringing, we look at our relationships with, the way we were raised, our relationship with our parents, and we analyze it, we try to understand it. Well, we now know where those memories are stored, and they're stored in this slower brainwave frequency in the form of energy. And we now know that really all of our actions and our reactions are dictated by this accumulation of stored memories. So if we want to call it like a programmable system, like a computer hard drive in your mind. And now we're finding out that really what we can do, and this is where I think it's so exciting, is we can go in and kind of scramble up and get rid of the program.
Get rid of the malware. The malware.
Get rid of it, and then reprogram. And then you can reprogram it with positive winning scenarios. But it's that behemoth, the iceberg that's under the water. That's the part that's running the show. That's the part that Cara and I are trying to go directly to now. We don't bother with that little part up above, which is the conscious part. We are now focused solely on the subconscious mind. And I mean, Freud, I was trained in, true traditional psychoanalytic talk therapy. And I am so excited to be focusing on this whole new area. And it will blow my mind if you tell me we're not on the right path.
Oh, but
you're not on the right path. No, I'm kidding.
No, real quickly, this is called the soul happy technique. And you know how Freud, you said that people are into immediate gratification. Well, this is a very short program, right? Isn't it like, 6 sessions or online? Everything's online. It's extremely inexpensive. And you go back to it all the time.
It's substantial education, though. It's not like, he used the analogy of a drive-through hamburger, which probably isn't healthy for us. We want it quick. This is substantial, and he's saying this is cutting edge. And if you want to change the behavior, you have to change one of the selves, he's saying. So it's really looking at the unconscious self. He said the reason the unconscious or the subconscious, he's calling it the unconscious, or at least I'm hearing unconscious.
That is what he always called it, the unconscious.
He calls it the unconscious self, is that people are addicted. He's using the word addiction. So he would like to say that all addictions operate without the conscious self. Because if the conscious self were active in an addict on any level, they wouldn't be doing it. And so it is all about reprogramming and not, I almost said curing, and he corrected me, not curing, but reprogramming and retransitioning the addiction. And what I'm hearing, and what's beautiful about this can work for all addictions.
Oh, that's awesome. So
Oh
I feel
God.
like we're ignoring you, Robin. Do you have anything to add? For one thing, a lot of the blog members asked, after you transitioned, did you regret it? Did you feel any remorse?
No, he said not at all. No.
Okay.
Didn't Erik feel a little remorse? I'm sorry to interrupt, but didn't Erik initially?
Fleeting, I think. Right, Erik? I mean,
Erik felt remorse.
Upset. Yeah.
He felt remorse and sadness for his mom, but the overall idea of doing it did not make him feel remorseful.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly.
Nor did Robin, and Robin felt the same way.
Okay.
What percentage of Freud or Robin or Erik of depression is not serotonin, not dopamine, not norepinephrine, but endorphin, which is very difficult to measure, very unreliable to measure those levels? Because, people who have endorphin deficiencies, including autoimmune endorphin deficiency, they're the ones that will seek opiates. They're the ones that can, that maybe are part of this whole opiate crisis.
Freud said it's a major contributor, and yet it hasn't been looked at seriously.
Well, I tried to, LDN, low-dose naltrexone, triples your endorphins. I have tried so hard to get this out to the government, schools, etc., that this could be the answer for this opiate crisis.
He's saying, Freud is saying between 80 to 85%
would benefit by low-dose naltrexone to. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, what should we do? Because it saved my other son, Lucas.
Really
saved him.
I mean, like, to Freud's point about getting the knowledge out there, I mean, Elisa, the good news is you have quite a pretty big following thanks to Erik, and you're getting the knowledge out there. I mean, we got to spread this, a big part of Cara's and my goal with the Soul Happy technique is what Freud said is knowledge, spreading new information and knowledge.
But you have to have people listen, and they don't. Another thing I tried so hard to do, and I got a petition with a whole bunch of over 1,000 signatures that we do, and I want Freud, Robin Williams, and Erik's viewpoint on this is mental health screening, first in elementary school, then in middle school, and then in high school, with those latter two also including, addiction potential, etc. Because people fall between the cracks, and early intervention is often very important. But again, I've sent it to all the congressmen and,
Well, listen, Freud wants to take you back a step. Freud wants to say, if we are going to eradicate or largely eliminate a lot of this problem, it really needs to be looked at in a union setting. So if two people come together and they want to procreate, they want to have children, let it begin right there. What are you bringing to this union? What are you bringing to this union as far as your background? He's saying we will look at people's health. Are you bringing any disease to this? Are you bringing any physical disease to this? He's saying, but it's time that we start to look at the mental health end of what you're bringing to the relationship. Now, he's saying that's never going to happen because he's saying there's an infringement, there's an imposition on rights. He's saying people aren't going to want to have that, but he's pointing out very clearly, if you have two people that come together and one of them was diagnosed or is undiagnosed and procreates and has this person that now carries this gene, and you don't even know it's there until this kid's in 8th grade and he's cutting heads off bunnies. I mean, there's something there, he's saying, that could have been prevented had we done early screenings. He is an advocate for early invasive mental screenings.
I agree. Okay, we're running out of time, so I want to go through some things very quickly. How can these people who want to kill themselves, what can they do in their minds to try to get themselves out of that trance and stop them from going over the edge? Robin, you can answer this if you want, or anybody.
Well, Robin jumped in right away, and he says, you know what? There's nothing anybody could have said to me. I had everything, he said. What you can do and what we can do, and he's saying we as a panel, we can educate people on how to see the signs that most people don't see. Freud is saying, just like the unconscious is under the iceberg that's under here, so are the signs that will give you indication your loved one isn't settled in their skin, in who they are. And I think it was Tracy that said, when you're out of alignment. So having conversations, Freud says, that look like, what do you feel you're here for? What's your life purpose? What does it all mean to you? We don't have those conversations. And Robin Williams and Erik and Freud are all in agreement that once we start talking on a purpose level, like you say to your 5-year-old, gee, you know, you're building the blocks like that. For what purpose? What's your goal? What do you want to do with that? Have the conversations early on, and then you introduce the concept of purpose. Kids don't know purpose until purpose is taught.
That's true. You know, I asked Erik that, what is your purpose here on earth, when he was alive? And he says, I'm here to teach people how to be. And I go, whoa.
And you know what?
Wow.
He needed to transition into the world he's in to teach people how to be. And your boy is teaching people how to be.
Well, a little personal anecdote, probably a little bit too personal. Not that long ago, I had some family drama that put me into a major, major tailspin. And I was struggling so hard to be here. I was struggling so hard to fight against not ending my life. And it was really freaking serious. And I thought about what effect it would have on my kids and my husband, and oh my gosh. So I said, oh my God, I got to get myself out of this. I've got to change my perspective somehow. I can't do this. And we were camping, and for some reason I forgot my underwear. I don't know. I never forget my underwear. So we had to go to Walmart to get some underwear. So the thought that saved me is, I'll be god dang if I'm going to be caught dead in Walmart panties. There's no freaking way. So I got myself out of bed and, you know.
Erik made you forget your underwear that morning.
Yeah. Walmart
Totally.
panties saved the day. So really just fighting and trying to tweak your perspective sometimes can help. Now, a lot of people ask, what things, well, before I do that, let me ask, what percentage of institutionalized or psychiatric patients are actually just empaths or channelers that hear spirits, or maybe they have a negative entity attached to them, but are not mentally ill in the
they're not psychotic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're just like, oh, you're hearing voices? Oh, let's put you in the loony bin, when really they're just channeling. I wonder how many of those.
Freud said, he said, I'll take a stab at it, he said. Freud says it's actually pretty low. He's saying 30%.
Oh, that's higher than I thought.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Now, another thing, some people are suicidal because they have PTSD. I wonder if they would benefit by EMDR. And what about past life regression? Because maybe they committed suicide at that same age in another life and it's bleeding through. Maybe energy healing helps. Maybe emotional freedom technique like the tapping helps. Between lives regressions to figure out what contract you made. What sort of things like that, these spiritual tools, should somebody who is suicidal try?
So he's calling your attention back to, you don't know that you necessarily are that close to the edge because it's normal to you. And he's showing me the image of you're climbing up a ladder. You're trying to climb out of the hole and up the ladder, but the ladder is greased. And you can't get a grasp. You can't hold on to it. And what he says about past life regressions, he says it doesn't matter where the unconscious comes from. What matters is excavating it and reprogramming it. That's really all that matters.
Okay. And the EMDR for PTSD?
Yeah, that's a very positive tool.
Okay.
Yes, he says.
What about energy healing?
He's saying it doesn't hurt. You can have your energy aligned, and you should. He's saying, but again, he's saying it's like going to the chiropractor. Mm-hmm. You can't just go once to the chiropractor and expect that it's going to hold and it's going to heal. It has to be work that's kept up on. But again, he's reminding us we're fighting addiction. Yeah. Addiction to behavior and patterns of behavior.
Oh, well, what about between lives regression? You know, some people I think are so depressed because they don't know what their spiritual mission is. They don't know what their life's purpose is. So if they go between lives to that planning stage where they figured out, you know, what they wanted their life in a human form to look like, maybe that would.
He said that's possible, but that can't be the first step, he said, because again, going back to the ladder that's greased, you can't get yourself up. So if I'm hearing him correctly, I'm not getting that he's advocating for any spiritual technique necessarily. He wants it to be mindful technique. He keeps using the words, ladies, maybe you understand. He keeps using the word excavation.
So, I mean, we think, and then Cara, you jump in. I think that what we're trying to do is identify, you know, the negative, the accumulated buildup. We kind of refer to it as like little clusters that kind of get formed. You have a cluster of fear, a cluster of sadness, a cluster of rage, and each of these little clusters are sitting in the subconscious mind, and they get triggered and you just react. And in fact, you know, people who are suicidal can get triggered, and then before you know it, their suicide might have even been a compulsive reaction. Mm-hmm. So we think of excavation, and I'm curious if this is kind of a little bit of how he means it, is we try to, you know, identify those clusters, excavate them out. We use exercises that involve EMDR, some EFT, some energy work. We do exercises that kind of break up those clusters, you know, excavate them. And then what we try to do is, you know, fill up those spaces with positive programming.
Yes, he's confirming that that's it. But he's saying to excavate it, he's saying it's like this. He's showing me, if when you mine diamonds, you have to chisel away and you have to chip away and you have to really break away all the stuff that covers it till you can get to the brilliance and the beauty of it. And that's what he's saying is the forefront right now where psychology and psychotherapy needs to go. It's chiseling away at that exterior. So I think you're saying the same thing, Tracy. It's that stuff inside, but he's using the analogy of chipping away and getting to the diamond, the shiny part of it, the happiness of it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I would just, you know, add two things came up for me is that accountability of the individual for their own healing as they go through their lives. I mean, I think that's a really, really big thing. And the other big thing I think the takeaway from today might be just educate yourself, you know, on all of these concepts, because there's so much out there right now in terms of energy and understanding. And there's a terminology now known as energy psychology. So it is emerging it's coming forth. This information is out there, and for people to begin taking ownership is, I believe, where this talk about suicide and this talk about mental illness, I think, and mental health in general, I think that's where this conversation needs to continue on. And of course, our funding for this kind of thing, where, to Elisa's point, that has to happen.
Yeah. Robin, would any technique, any of these things saved you?
He's saying, no, I was an old soul and it was time to push on.
Okay. I want to ask Freud, what is the future? What does the future look like for mental health?
The image he showed me was a ball, a cylinder, a circle. It looks like a ball, actually, but it's crystal clear. And you can actually see clearly into the brain, literally into the thought. Oh, I get it. It's intuitive work. It's literally having someone work with you to look into your brain and to figure out the parts of you that are known and unknown. So it's intuitive work. And actually what I understand it to be, the girls, what you're doing is, and I wasn't getting that. Like, that's literally what you're doing, right? I mean, you're looking inside.
And a big part of what we're doing is getting people to that place of knowingness, because that earlier disconnect, I think it was either Freud or Robin brought up, that disconnect is so magnified right now, and maybe that's why suicide is up. That disconnect, when you don't have that knowingness, when you aren't in touch with your, whatever you want to call it, in our technique, we call it your core. We get you in touch with your core so that you start to really listen to your own knowingness, which is your own intuition, your gut feeling. And you really practice that and you build that up. And that knowingness will help guide you. It will help you make decisions, and it will also help with that alignment.
So that's where the mindfulness comes in.
Right, and being transparent. That's why he showed me the round ball that was transparent. To be transparent, to show up in life being transparent, being who you are. And this process is cutting edge in the sense that it's going to take people into therapy, and he's going therapy in a whole different way. We can't keep doing what we're doing and expect different results. Hello, I think it was Einstein said that's crazy, and Freud agrees. We have to do something different. And I think the numbers speak to that. We're losing lives every day because the same old shit isn't working.
Mm. Well, I mean, are you talking about being emotionally honest with others and with yourself? Is that part of the transparency?
If your life is cleaned out, if you have worked through this and you have come into alignment, think about it. Elisa, we get asked all the time, or at least I get asked, when's the world going to get better? What's going to bring world peace? It ain't going to happen collectively. It's going to happen one person at a time. And this therapy, this way of living, he corrects me, he's saying, is going to make people more centered, more balanced, more transparent. They don't have to show up proving anything except living on purpose and being who they are.
That's awesome. All right, I want to go from take each person and ask if they have anything else to add. Of course, Tracy and Cara, I hope that includes sharing where they can find out more about the Soul Happy technique. First of all, Dr. Freud, thank you so much for imparting so much wisdom and clarity. Would you like to add anything else that might help us?
He's saying just the fact that we're sitting here talking like this is a beginning, and this is cutting edge. And people are typically afraid of what they don't know. So don't be afraid, he says, plow forward, listen to something that isn't there, he says, meaning the higher being, and move forward with this.
Awesome. What about you, Erik?
Erik is, Mom, look how good you're doing now. Okay. And Mom, you know that if I weren't on this side talking to other people, we wouldn't be doing the work we're doing and helping the people we're helping.
That's true. And I don't have Walmart panties on today. So just FYI.
He loves you.
And Robin Williams.
Robin Williams is saying life really is all about laughing. Life really is all about finding the joy that brings the belly laugh to you. But it's also about balancing with the life that hurts and being honest about it and being able to talk about it. And he's saying this work will do just that. He's saying, don't forget to laugh, but don't laugh falsely, he says.
Yeah, laugh on the inside too, man, not just the outside. Veronica, what would you like to share from a personal standpoint? Your feelings,
you know
anything?
what? I've been through this. My family suffered with mental illness my whole life. My mother's schizophrenic, bipolar. And I do think it's time. It's time for us to have an honest dialogue and for us to get out of our own way and make tradition go away and start new.
Good. All right, Tracy, Cara?
Well, I mean, I guess I would say to Freud, we'll pick up your challenge, and we're on a mission, and we are going to help through our technique and through the information that we get out there. We're determined to help one subconscious mind at a time.
Yeah.
All right, Cara?
I think that, just what Tracy said, we at a point in our careers where we just said, there's more, not only for our field, but more for us as individuals. And, she says that we are on a mission. We say this all the time. We are on a mission. And we just want the world to be a better place. And
people are maybe ready to hear it. Maybe like what they said, people are ready because they need it, because why is suicide up? Why is this disconnect so severe? People are ready. We need this.
Absolutely.
And maybe can help. And Robin Williams from his end, we know Erik's doing his part. Sure.
All right, so they can find out more about you guys through the website soulhappytechnique.com or
soulhappy.com.
That's easy, soulhappy.com. And Veronica, she is at veronicadrake.com. How easy is that? Now, this is the first in our panel series. The next one might not be about mental illness. It might be something different, but we'll probably have some sort of scientist from the other side, of course, Erik, and, some other person. So it'll be a lot of fun, hopefully inspiring, hopefully educational, and, with Erik on board, you never know. It could be anything. I love you, Erik. I love you, ladies. Thank you so much, Robin. Thank you, Dr. Freud. And until next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.